Episode 3, Trev's Top 10s, here on Trev's Hockey Show. I'm the Trev. You know that. If you're tuning in, if you're watching, it's too sweet. Anyway, now if you recall, our last episode of Top 10s was the top 10 moments of the 2019 calendar year. This one was a little harder and required a little more digging on my part to do. And granted, this is only my top 10s. It doesn't have to be everybody else's top 10s. This is my top 10 moments of the decade. Let's talk about it. Now granted, the decade isn't over yet. We still have 2 weeks left till we hit 2020. But I figured now is as good a time as any to start counting down my favorite moments from January 1st, 2010 to now. 10 years of hockey to go through. Let's start. Coming in at number 10. It's the Kings' first cup win. Now what makes this one so special, you ask? I'll gladly tell you. Back in 1988, when a guy named Wayne Gretzky was traded to the Kings, they were cup contenders overnight and only managed to reach the cup final once in 1993. So the question after that became, will the Kings ever win the cup? Fast forward about, 19 years, and the Kings are there. No Gretzky, no Robitaille, no Rudy, no Curry, none of that. Instead, you got Dustin Brown, Anze Kopitar, Jeff Carter, Mike Richards, Jonathan Quick, Drew Doughty. The list goes on. For me, it was a point of I'd only waited to see something like this happen for the Kings for a long time. I was actually hopeful it would have happened when Gretzky was there, but the fact that they were able to do it without that kind of star power and just rely on being the 8th seed and win it all, it was a great story. It was good to see for the Kings. It was good to see for hockey in California, and it was good just to see overall. You know, someone who isn't a juggernaut in the NHL just come back and win it. Loved it. Number 9. Vegas Golden Knights expansion season. Now, this is not a Cinderella. It never was a Cinderella. It's a success. Granted, the expansion draft was leaning more in their favor than previous expansion drafts, but it's not to say that any other expansion team before them could have drafted the same way. Granted, I mean, they didn't have a lot of star power available to them. I mean, if, say Minnesota or Columbus, the last 2 expansion teams before Vegas, had an opportunity to select a guy like Marc-Andre Fleury, they probably would have, but they didn't. And Vegas knew how to capitalize on something like that. They had the experience of George McPhee helping pick what would have been their inaugural lineup. To see them go from expansion team to first in the Pacific Division, to Western Conference champions, to Stanley Cup finalists. It set the bar for expansion, and it proved that you can be successful in your first season. All you have to do is apply it right. If there's any Thrashers fans in the house, I apologize. But moment number 8 comes in 2011 when the Atlanta Thrashers, who were really, if we thought Arizona was bad, Atlanta was worse. Going through ownership problems, going through attendance problems, leaking money left, right, and center, finally got bought by somebody who was willing to take care of them and not only help their finances, but move them to a market that was craving, bleeding for hockey ever since the original Winnipeg Jets moved. And granted, it took them a couple years to get off the ground. It happens when you have the original Atlanta Thrashers club. But when they took off, they took off. Oh my goodness. And it was almost good in a sense because I used to work with a lot of people at that time. Even before then, maybe like 2 years prior. who came over from Winnipeg and were still bitter about losing the original Jets. And I tell them every time, we'd have a hockey talk or whatever, it's like, hopefully you get the Jets back. And they did. All was right in Winnipeg. And we'll leave it at that. 7. It's 2014 Winter Classic. It was nice to see it because it was canceled in 2013. And it was nice to see it not so much because it was an odd color scheme. Detroit wore red, Toronto wore blue, nobody wore white except for the ground and the ice. But what was nice about it, I thought, was the jam-packed capacity. 104,173 people sat outdoors at the Big House to watch a game go to a shootout, which, Toronto won, but man. Maybe outdoor games are not Detroit's thing, but lately winning is not Detroit's thing either. That's another story for another time. It was just nice to see hockey was still that popular after a lockout, that they could sell at the Big House to that kind of a number. I mean, amazing. The original record was Heinz Field in the 2011 Winter Classic. The original record before that was Commonwealth Stadium for the 2003 Heritage Classic. Good luck to anybody who wants to top that number. Number 6. I don't know why I'm picking on Detroit so much, but there's a theme here that I'm going to get at, and it will come up later. Good things happen, or at least memorable things happen, either when I'm busy doing other things and just getting in the door. And this was no exception. October 19th, 2013, I was in Cochrane, Alberta. I was attending my grandmother's funeral. We just got back from a good night at a restaurant down in Cochrane, where I actually had this is almost cliche. I had my first flat, tasteless Manhattan. If you know your Simpsons, you know where that comes from. But I also came in at a time when Mike Smith, goalie for the Coyotes, became the next goalie to shoot and score. Not get credited, to shoot and score. It's a treat to see a goalie score. It always is. I don't think it'll ever be a novelty that gets old. But to see Mike Smith do it, playing for the Coyotes against the Red Wings, who were at that time good. Hopefully we see more goaltenders shooting the puck in the net. Number 5. The return of the World Cup back in 2016. My daughter was born before the World Cup tournament started. So when I got her home, the first thing I did was introduce her to hockey. She was only a couple of weeks old, maybe a week and a half old. But it was important to me that she got to understand what hockey was. And it's not so much for that. It was also because the World Cup came back. I mean, before this was 2004, and that preceded the lockout. I know there's so many lockouts, but we only need to refer to that as the lockout, and everybody should know what I'm talking about. The format was a little different. I mean, you had the under-23s, you had Team Europe, but the result was still the same. It was rigged. It went Canada's way, naturally. But it was good to see the World Cup make a comeback. I hope they have more World Cups in the future, and I hope they play by international rules, not NHL rules, because if you're calling it a World Cup, play by international rules. Number 4. The NHL Centennial season. This was great for 2 things. One, it was the league's 100th year. The fact that they've made it 100 years and had bumps along the way, which league doesn't, right? It was good to see it reach that milestone. And B, it produced this picture, and it also produced this picture. Number 3. Do you remember at point 6, where Mike Smith scored his goal, that I was saying classical moments seem to happen when I'm not home or when I'm just getting in the door. This is the moment I was talking about. When the Blackhawks won the Cup in 2013. I, myself, predicted that series going 7 games. So when Game 6 came around, I didn't think anything of it. I kept myself busy, went to the local card store, picked up my eBay winnings, came home, turned on the computer because at the time I didn't have cable. I was streaming. I didn't care. Turned on the computer, put up the website. No sooner that the streams began, Chicago ties the game. 17 seconds later, Chicago wins the Cup. And you knew that was when they won the Cup. I mean, with the amount of time left, I think there was like a buck something left. There was no chance the Bruins were going to tie that game back up. No chance. They tried, but they didn't. And it was just one of those moments where it's like, wow, good timing. It was nice to see a Cup win the instant I walk in the door. Speaking of Cup wins, number 2, when the Caps finally won the Cup in 2018. It's bittersweet to me because before they won, I think 2 or 3 years, maybe 4 years before that, I had said if it takes me jumping off the Caps wagon for them to win the Cup, so be it. I jumped off that wagon, and they won that Cup. So it was very bittersweet, it was very heartwarming, and it was also on the same day as my wedding rehearsal. So I guarantee you, no word of a lie, I was paying a little more attention to the phone than I was the rehearsal. Because this was a moment that I never ever thought was going to happen. I was a Caps fan for the longest time. And when I jumped off the wagon, it was like, I hope they do. I really hope they do. And they did on that kind of a day. It was lovely. It was very lovely. This should be a no-doubter. If you know me as well as you think you do, this is a no-doubter. Seattle expansion is number 1. I only been pushing for this moment for 20 years. Ever since I visited Seattle. Despite the fact that it was raining the whole time I was there, you could tell it was a sports market. And if hockey can work in Vancouver, if hockey can work in California, it can work in Seattle. Was my philosophy. And granted, my push to getting a team in Seattle is very, very minuscule to the $650 million expansion fee, plus the $700 million new building fee. We're not calling it a renovation. It's not a renovation. It's a new building. But the fact that it finally came to pass, my 20 years of preaching to anybody who would listen why Seattle needs a team, and they got one. Granted, they're not going to play till 2021, but I can wait. I can wait. I mean, apparently the colors, the logo, the nickname is all coming in the first quarter of 2020. So that's going to be exciting, and when that does happen, guess what video is going up? As soon as I can put it up. But yeah, number 1 should be a no-doubter because it was that great of a moment to me. This is episode 3 of Trev Top 10s here on Trev's Hockey Show. I want to thank you for tuning in. Your viewership always means so much to me. Always has, always will, and I'll never get tired of you guys watching my stuff. Never, ever, ever. The fact that you do makes me happy. Very happy. But if you like this video, feel free to hit that like button. If you want to, there's that little red button in the corner there. Hit that thing. Just up to date with all the content that I'm putting out. If you want to, you can find Trev's Trade Page on Facebook at Trev's Trade Page. You can find the parent channel on Facebook at Trev's TV. And you can find me on Instagram at Rockstar Trev TV. Moving forward, as far as the top 10s is concerned, I got a couple for the wrestling channel. So look for the top 10s there. As far as the hockey channel is concerned, there's always hockey stuff to put up. And trust me, I can reach in the bucket and I can grab anything. Because there's a lot of hockey stuff that I would love to go over. And I probably will. It's just a matter of time. But either way, in the meantime, and in between time, be looking for more videos from the Trev. Later.